Hello, Maryland and DC, Odyssey of the Mind coaches. This is Betsy, your tournament director. Are you guys ready for tournament? You better be, because it's just around the corner. This is your tournament day prep video, otherwise known as I survived months of this stuff, so now what? I'm here to talk to you about what tournament day looks like. When you get up in the morning and you bring all your stuff, this is what you need to do once you reach the school. You're going to be checking in at registration. Then you're going to have your long-term and spontaneous problems. Some may have long-term first, then spontaneous. Some teams may have spontaneous and then long-term. It's just however it needed to fit into the schedule. You will pick up your long-term scores about an hour after your long-term performance. And then after all of that and all that hard work, you'll go to the award ceremony and see it pay off. Now, before you check in, you and your kids have worked hard, so don't let the details trip you up. Remember to have all of your required documents to check in, and then you can receive your team packet. I have to say, out of all the years that I've done this, this is the one that I've seen teams get tripped up the most and lose a lot of score points for, because they've done the style in particular form quickly, without detail needed to give the judges the help that they need to recognize the great work that your kids have done. We'll go over that more in a little bit, but let's look at what should be turned in at the check-in desk. You have your media consent form, which is on Maryland Odyssey of the Mind, so that's mdodyssey.org. If you go under the coaches page, you have files and forms. You can find all of these forms there. There's the media consent form. Each team member and coach needs to have one of these signed and there, or else they are not performing with the rest of their team. You need to have a team code of conduct form, which is signed by the coaches and the team member. Another, if you don't have this, you're not competing. The team list form is a little bit special. It is highly recommended. It is depending on which problem you're doing, so it's unique to the problem. What it is basically is a Cliff Notes version that you give the judges so that they're watching for what they need to be scoring on, so that they spend their time watching the things that they need to instead of being confused. So this is so beneficial to have your teams turn in 4 copies of that, but it is not required. There's one cost form, which is required for every single problem. You'll be filling that out. Your kids will be filling that out. Have them list every single item that is within their solution, and you can find the worth and cost of those items in the problem guide. The outside assistance form, which is letting us know if the team had any help from outside sources. You'll receive a much less penalty if you report it than if your kids tell us later, Jimmy's dad did this. It'll be a lot more understanding that way. Your style form, you need to have 4 copies of this, 1 for each of the judges. This is a required form, and it tells us, the style judges, what you want scored. There are 2 required categories for each problem. Those will be filled in on 1 and 2. On 3 and 4 is always the free choice of the team. Each team will pick 2 items within all of their pizzazz in their solution that they want the judges to grade them on, basically. These are the best and brightest, the things that they're most proud of. The thing that's important is to make sure that you're being specific and make sure that it is not already scored in any other problem, which you can determine by reading, I believe it's the D score area in your problem. So pay attention. This is one of those things that happens every single year. You will not receive your registration packet and be able to compete without those 4 copies of the style form, 1 cost form, 1 outside assistance form, media release forms for each team member and coach, a code of conduct form, and we still recommend that you bring the team list form. But make sure you have that done. You'll save valuable time for you and for us, and keep everything on schedule if you have these done before you get to tournament. Now here's a pro tip. Clarifications. I know that we've had a good number of clarifications submitted this year, and if your team is one of them, be sure to print out the clarifications and bring them with you. You give them to your staging judge, and they will make sure that they're given to the judges, and you can be scored with the questions that you asked in mind. However, if you didn't submit a clarification, did you know that Odyssey of the Mind has public clarifications? That is when a question has been asked that is not individual to a team solution, but about the problem as a whole that every team should be able to know. You can find those on odysseyofthemind.com under clarifications and your problem. You should be familiar with those because the judges will be scoring based on those public clarifications within a night of the tournament. Now let's talk about the check-in process. This is what's going to happen. You're going to come into the school. Now as you go into the school, there's going to be a sign that tells you right where to go for registration desk. You're going to walk up to that table and you're going to tell the volunteer your school, the problem you're competing in, and the name of the coach. And then they're going to hand you a manila envelope, and you're going to verify that the label on the packet is your team. Now, if you look inside that packet, there's a welcome letter, a map, a white score pickup card, which is an index card, a pastel spontaneous checking card, which is also an index card. Both of those will have like a little return address label that has your team's information on it. Do not lose these cards. There will also be participation ribbons for D1 and D2 or certificates for D3. You're going to give the volunteer your 4 completed style forms. They're then going to put those in the packet. You're going to give the volunteer 1 completed cost form. Then you're going to put that form in the packet. You're going to give the volunteer 1 completed outside assistant form, and they're going to put that in the packet. Do you see a theme? Now, optionally, you give the volunteer 4 copies of your team list. If you do that, then those forms will also go into the packet, but it's only optional. Then you're going to give them media release forms for every member of your team and the coach, and that will stay at registration. That does not go back in the packet. You're going to give the volunteer your team conduct form. That is also going to stay at registration. You don't need those two. Our volunteers will review your performance time and locations, go over it with you with the map, and then you're going to finish checking in. You're going to keep that packet and hang on to those index cards and the packet. They have all of your paperwork that you need, and the index cards are your keys to get your score back or to be able to compete in spontaneous. So now that you've checked in, I want you to look at your schedule. Like I said, some teams have long performance first, and then some teams have their spontaneous times first. It doesn't really matter because either way, you're going to go through the process just the same. For this example, we're going to pretend that you have long-term first and then spontaneous. So here are the steps for competing in long-term. First, you're going to go to staging. Then there's going to be an 8-minute performance by your teams. Then your team is going to show off to the judges. And then after that, you're going to return an hour later for score. Now in staging, you need to go 20 minutes before your long-term performance time that is listed to the staging area, which should be right outside your problem site. You're going to be giving the staging judge your sheets that you just showed the check-in people. You're going to give them those sheets. So that's the 4 style sheets, your cost sheet, your outside assistant sheet, and if you have them, the 4 team form lists. The judge will make sure that the forms have been completed correctly. If there is a mistake and they notice, oh hey, this has actually happened before, they put free choice of team as the style element number 3 instead of choosing a style element, they will give your team the opportunity to make an adjustment if there is time before your team is supposed to go on. If there are technical or size specifications to your problem, then staging will also allow you to have an opportunity to make adjustments within the time before the judges are ready. I can't specify, just go over this enough to help your kids this week. Make sure that they have all their I's dotted, T's crossed, Q's curly cued, just to save them hassle and make sure that they feel comfortable knowing that everything is going to be there for them. Save themselves stress, save you stress, and just have that done. I will say that the exemption to this is balsa. My balsa teams, actually before staging at some time, you are going to go to weigh-in. Just follow the signs to weigh in, and they will go over that pre-staging part with you. You need to be going to weigh in at least an hour before your performance time. Now, here's a pro tip for style. Remember I talked about that? Make sure that free choice of style isn't an element that is already being judged in the other sections, and be detailed so that we know exactly what you've worked hard on. Here's an example that I've seen once. Here was the free choice of team, which would have been 3 and 4. They chose the model of temple and Omer. And then, as trying to explain it, they dressed Omer to look cool and they made a little temple. Now, as you can guess, it was not very detailed. We weren't sure what was cool about Omer. How did they make the temple? What part of it was special other than the fact that they made it? These are very, very general. So in this case, in a different state, they turned this in ahead of time because they did this at regional, and then when they went on to state later, they were able to change it and fix it up. And so this is what their new one looked like. They said the creativity of the temple model. They wanted to show the pharaoh what the temple would look like if it was completely finished with trees and the plants that were mature. They built the temple using cardboard, penny rolls, Play-Doh, goldfish crackers, model train trees, and silk flowers. As you can see, that's way more detailed, so we understand what they did that made it so special, as opposed to, yep, you build a smaller version of it. Okay, next. This is what really helps your teams beforehand show the judges how much work they put into it. Now, there's the 8-minute performance. All props need to stay within the staging area until the announcer says, time begin. After that, hands off, coaches and parents. It's not your problem. Do not help or remind your team about the lines or what comes next. Do not help them get their props out onto the stage floor. Even though you mean well, it can result in a penalty for your team. Don't even help with hair or makeup or fix a part of their costume. It is all up to them that day. Now, after their time ends and your team gives the cue to let the judges know that they're finished, clap, 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 but stay in your seat. This is where the kids get to shine. The judges are going to be applauding and then go up and ask the kids questions on how they came up with the solution. They're going to ask who made the props, whose idea was it to use this supply, what made them think of doing this sort of thing. This is where your teams will brag about how they were so unique and creative. And it also gives our judges a chance to see up close, because sometimes these little guys don't enunciate as loud as we would like to, or things get blocked by the positions of their bodies. So in case they weren't able to see clearly, they can go up and see and ask questions about it later so that they can get every score point those teams deserve. Now, after the judges walk away, hurry as fast as you can to hug your teams and then help them get their props off the stage so that we can stay on time. And then celebrate. All that hard work has paid off. Now, an hour later, you're going to go collect your scores. You're going to give that little white index card that I told you to hang on to the head judge. They will have some sticker on them that says head judge. They will also be wearing a blue shirt as opposed to the white shirts that are for teams on sale. You're going to review your scores with the head judge. You will have 30 minutes to protest any of the objective scores. If it is a style score, it is not able to be protested. But if it is an objective score of whether something happened or did not happen, you can protest that later. Now, you've done the long term, so what's the step for spontaneous? Well, first you have spontaneous check-in. Then from there you go to spontaneous holding. From there, the teams have spontaneous problem, and after that is the code of silence. For spontaneous check-in, 15 minutes before your scheduled spontaneous time on your card in your packet, you want to take that colored index card from your registration packet and go to the spontaneous check-in table. There will be signs leading for that. Now, no one goes beyond that table except for the people who have given that card. So you want to make sure that you have that card. Otherwise, you're not getting to perform. Now, you want to take that colored card back once they verify, yes, it is your turn and we're ready for you. The volunteers will now take your team and one coach back to the spontaneous holding room. Now, spontaneous holding room is where you wait until the problem has been reset and the other team is gone, and so the judges are ready for you. You'll have probably that 15 minutes, 10 minutes to hang out and play and relax your team. Often coaches will bring a deck of cards or a silly word game or taboo, those kind of things. It's to relax your team. They're nervous. This is a problem that they haven't prepared for. When the room is ready, a volunteer will come back to the holding room and get your team. You're going to hand the volunteer your colored card so they make sure that they're taking your team to the right room, because nothing stinks worse than being taken to the wrong room and having to do it twice. So the volunteer will take your team to their problem while you stay in the holding room and wait. So they will have 5 team members solve that problem, and you will wait for them in holding, but after they're finished, they will be brought back to you. Now, we tell them after they are judged at Spontaneous what a great job they've done, but it's top secret. The first rule about Spontaneous is that we don't talk about Spontaneous. The second rule about Spontaneous is we still don't talk about Spontaneous. So do not discuss the problem or solution with your team. Don't let your teams talk about it with each other. Other teams are listening, and they still may need to solve the same Spontaneous problem you did. You don't want to give them an advantage. And even after the tournament, we use the same Spontaneous problems across the world. So other teams or tournaments that come after ours, we don't want them to know the answer ahead of time. So please, no public posting or talking about it where it can get back to these other teams. Okay, well, you know what to do about those problems. So what are you going to do in the times that you aren't performing? Well, we encourage people to visit other performances. Soak in the creativity, whether it's your problem or not. Get ideas for how other people solve things. What materials did they use? What can you do different next time? We have our sales table, which, heaven's willing, we will be able to get the shipping for the pins in time. We have some great pins this year. Shirts, lots of great pins from World Finals of previous years are available to purchase. We have our creativity booth that we always present at World Finals. We get to sample it at our tournament first. There will be food trucks and, of course, meet kids from other schools. Now, for food choices, food can only be eaten in the cafeteria. You can bring your own food from home. There's a Little Caesars right down the road, but we do expect to have local food trucks on site. We've already had agreements from Bullhead Beef and Fired Up Grill, so there will be barbecue as well as hot dogs and hamburgers, chicken, fries. Those should all be available outside. But last, before you go home, the award ceremony. After all teams have been scored and all coaches have had that 30 minutes to review their scores and make any protestations, we'll be holding the award ceremony in the auditorium. We're shooting to start at 4 o'clock, but sometimes things don't go as planned and we get behind in our schedule. But if your team wins an award, we will call their name and they will go on stage to receive their medals and the trophy for their school. If your team places first or second or receives a Renat Rafusca, which is the creativity award that is just it doesn't necessarily have to work, but it's just so creative and out of the box that it needs special recognition. Those teams are also eligible to advance to World Finals at Michigan State in May this year. So please stay after the ceremony to receive the information packet. We will be holding an informational webinar in the following weeks for all World Finals coaches. Now, as I said, teams can be nominated for the Renat Rafusca, but they can only be nominated by the judges. However, if you know of someone, whether they be a parent or a team member, that is deserving of a different award, which we call the OMER Award, which has nothing to do with creativity. It is about going above and beyond, doing more than they were ever asked for in extraordinary circumstances. You can submit their name for nomination and explain why they deserve that award. I'm not talking about we had a hard time and everything just went wrong and they came and did it anyway. I'm talking about someone who really, really went above and beyond. You can receive one of those forms at the registration or info table if you would like to fill those out. We have often multiple OMERs in a year. However, most years we do not have a Renat Rafusca, as that is a very rare award. If you still have questions, email me. Once again, it's Betsy Scow, tournament at mdodyssey.org. I'm usually really fast with my emails because I have my phone on me at all times. And if I don't get to you right away, I will. So don't give up. Email me. I promise I've heard every question, and if I don't have the answer, I will find it out for you. All right, guys, I will see you at tournament in just a few days. Good luck.